Well, I appreciate the opportunity to come up here and talk with you guys today. How many guys have walked in here and was like, what is oxen? Like, yes. It's typically what the thing is when people come in, like, what is that? And it's that way on purpose. It's that way on purpose. It's one of those things I wanted to do to create a conversation starter. When Scripture says, be ready to give an answer for the hope that's within you. Well, someone's got to ask you a question, right? So it's kind of a little bit ambiguous on purpose, but it didn't come about because I ever wanted to start like a fashion clothing brand. That's never really what I was into. So for you guys that don't know me, I do Christian hip hop music full time for a living. I've toured around the country with a bunch of like big name people in the Christian music industry, from Toby Mac to Newsboys to Lecrae and all these people. And back in 2011, I found myself on the biggest concert tour I've ever been on in my whole life. It was this tour called Winter Jam. Have you guys ever heard of Winter Jam?
Yes.
And I'm out there on the road, and mind you, up until this point, it's a long story short. I started just doing music in church, and the thing is, I absolutely hated growing up in church. It was one of those things we had to go to church like every single day of the week, in this old like black gospel Baptist church, and I hated it. Like, in fact, the only thing, like, I went to one of those churches. I'm not sure if you guys ever been there, but like, my grandma was one that sat on the second row with a really big hat on, and every Sunday I just had to sit there and like be with my grandmother. And the only thing I cared about was to kind of get those little red and white peppermint candies out of her purse. But she would never give me a whole one. She would like bite off a piece of me. Some of you grandmas in here, you know what you're doing. She'd give me that slobbery piece of candy. I'm like, I hate church. That's it. That's what I thought about. But eventually they started this rap ministry at church. And like back when I was like, in 6th, 7th grade, I'm like, a rap ministry at church? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Raps at church, it's dumb. But I either had to sit with my big grandma or go with the kids and do this rap thing. So I was like, all right, I'll just get out of church and go do this. But anyway, long story short, I really built a relationship with God. And eventually, like, that was a calling that God has had in my life to go out and to do music. And I worked really hard and did all this stuff and done a lot of the radio things. And I finally get on this big concert tour. And I'm out here on these tour buses with all these big name artists. And I'm like, how did I even get here? This is crazy. And after every show, after every night of every concert, like, people would always come up to me and like, hey, where'd you get your hat from? Where'd you get your shirt? Or something like that. And I'm like, I got it at the mall. You'll get it. And people would literally go to the mall and like buy the same shirt that I was wearing and like send me a picture on Twitter. I'm like, they didn't even buy my CD. And they went to the mall and bought the same shirt. So I didn't think a whole lot of it up until after I get off this tour and I go back to the mall to go shopping in. The same brand that I was wearing at the same store, they had this new collection called Visuals. And I went to go check it out. And on the new collection, they had all these pictures of like these half-naked women on the front of the shirts. And I was like, I had just been on the biggest concert of my whole life. And I was on stage in front of all these people, and people were going to buy what I was wearing. And this is what I was sending them to go get. And I was like, I never want to be associated with that again. So I was like, man, I'm only gonna wear like Christian t-shirts. So I went to the Christian bookstore, and let's just say I didn't find what I was looking for there. So when a couple of years took place where I just had to go on this kind of soul-searching thing. I'm like, God, you've given me this platform to be able to reach hundreds of thousands of people each year, and how am I going to be representing you while I'm there? And long story short, I came across this scripture in Matthew chapter 11, verse 29. And it says, come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Now, that first part, rest, is what really stood out to me, because I'm not sure if you guys understand what it's like to try to like make it in the music industry, but it's not as easy as it is. And sometimes it takes, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and then getting on the road and lots of stuff that's not as glamorous. And I worked really hard to try to get to this point, and I realized that everything that I was doing was trying to please man. I was trying to please the music industry. I was trying to please the agents, record labels. I was trying to please everybody out there. And then when I came across the scripture, he was just saying, come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I'll give you rest. And I was like, that's really what I need. I need rest. I need to come away from trying to like make it in this world and be accepted by this world and just know that I can just be accepted by my Father. And then it says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. For I'm gentle and lowly in heart, you will find rest for your souls. So the method to find the rest was to take his yoke. Now, when I was just like me, and probably like a lot of you guys, I don't know a lot of stuff. I wasn't a homesteader. I didn't grow up on a farm, so I had to Google it. What is this yoke that he's talking about? And it's this, you guys probably know, but I didn't at the time. It's this beam that goes in the back of these oxen's neck, and they use it to go out to the field, to plow the field, to go and do work. And I'm like, if that's what it takes, I want to be someone that carries the yoke of Christ. That's really what I want to do. But of course, naturally, as I start to study this scripture a little bit more, I start to like ask, how do you carry this yoke? How are oxen actually carried? If he's painting this word picture, if Jesus is talking about this, what is he actually doing? So I go on and I start to look at how oxen are actually trained. And before oxen are actually introduced to the yoke or done anything, the very first thing that the master will do is they send them to get branded. And they take this hot branding iron, and I have one out on my table, I meant to go show you guys, but they take this hot branding iron and they burn a stamp, an identity into that animal. And what that does is before that oxen is given a job, before that oxen even knows anything about that master, before they really have a deep relationship, that oxen is given an identity. It's given a brand. And it made me think of this brand and all the brands that I was wearing on stage and what I represented. And I'm like, if I want to be known for anything, if I want to wear any sort of brand, I want to wear a brand that lets people know who I belong to. Because that's what that brand represents. So if that animal goes astray and it's off in some other people's field, they can look at that brand and identify who that oxen belongs to. So that's where it started as a clothing brand. I was like, well, that's the brand that I want to create. But then as I read about it a lot more, I realized that when you first get a set of oxen, you brand it, but they're still not able to carry this yoke. The next thing that they do is they put this ring in the bull's nose. And that ring is in the most sensitive part of the animal, because for the next 18 to 24 months or so, that oxen spends every single day with this master. That master will feed him by hand, he'll brush him, he'll clean out his hooves, he will file him down. He does all these things to build this relationship with this master. And eventually that master starts to teach him all these voice commands, like whoa means stop, yeah means go, gee, all these different voice commands, turn left, turn right, speed up, slow down. And as that oxen is learning the voice commands of his master, sometimes he gets a little bit stubborn, kind of like me. And the reason why that nose ring is in the most sensitive part of the animal is because when that oxen is learning and doesn't know how to walk properly or gets a little bit stubborn, all that master has to do is gently tug on that little ring and lead that oxen wherever he ought to go. And as we created this brand, that's how sensitive we ought to be to the Spirit. So when you see this ring, this logo, that's the ring that you put through the bull's nose, reminding oxen that want to carry this yoke, how sensitive we ought to be to his Spirit. And if I wanted to be known for anything, and I wanted to be known as somebody that carries the yoke of Christ, and that's why I created the Oxen Apparel brand. And I love the opportunity to come and speak to people like you, people like me, that really want to hear and obey the master's voice. And that's the reason why I created the brand. That's the reason why I created the Oxen brand. So when you wear it, when you see it, that's the reason why. And hopefully, if you're wearing it and someone asks you what is Oxen, you have the opportunity to share with them the reason of the hope that's within you, of what you're actually doing, who you belong to, who you listen to, and who you obey. So that's the reason why I created Oxen. Thank you guys for listening. And I want to give a shout out to Zach, because he's one of those people that carry the yoke of Christ, and he's one of the reasons why I am where I am today watching all of his videos. So give it up for Zach.